Oh, hello there, outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey. We are here on the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity and do that by helping them leverage what makes them different to make their biggest difference in the world. Put plainly and simple, we're a group of visionary leaders who are looking to find ongoing ways to bring our visions out into life in a way that's aligned with us. And I'm bringing in one outlier here today. Ryan Nelson is his name. And we're going to explore more about his journey, the way that he's doing things out in the world, and how he continues to build out and shape the world for what he's here on this planet to do. So, Ryan, I am absolutely excited for this conversation. Thank you so much for making the time for this. Thank you for doing what you do out in the world. It's an absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here as well.
Yeah. So Ryan, I'd like to start off each conversation with just sharing a bit about like who you've been to me, how you've shown up for me so far. I
Sure.
don't know what I'm gonna say. I feel like if I don't do it this way, it would be less authentic, and more canned, and then it defeats the purpose. So let me just take you in really quickly here. So Ryan, like my thing about you that I've really enjoyed is like I think that you are my impression of you is like it's like you're incredibly deliberate and able to like you have what I would call like discrete momentum. It's almost how I would say it, right? I feel
Okay.
like in every single conversation we have, like there are uh each of our conversations continues to move forward, right? But you're also able to like you don't have to you're not doing what I'm doing right now, right? Like you can say what you need to say really quickly, but it's also like quick. It's like it's cool. It's like and what I get from that is a level of on my end, like a level of ease that comes in where it's like, all right, I actually get that like you get what's going on. You know, that like you are a master in your domain, and you're able to take in information quickly, process it quickly, act on it quickly, and go from there. So I want to state
Awesome.
that in this conversation. We'll play out and see how that all goes out from there. But thank you for being you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, thank you
so
for having me.
so Ryan, let us know a little bit more about you, personally, professionally. I want to get a sense of that, and then I'll ask you a little bit more about like what your larger mission is.
Yeah, sure. You want me to just kind of do like a little bit of background?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, perfect.
What I'll say is this. Um, as people are listening in, right, we're going to spend most of the time like exploring like your inner journey. And I think it's really important that we give people a chance to understand like the external parts of you, like what other
Sure.
people may see, so that like they get like when we spend time and the way that you think about things and so forth, they're like, oh, okay, I get what he like how he's actually applied it and what he's actually gotten as a result of that. You good with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my story. So I'm out here in Reno, Nevada. Went to the local university here, University of Nevada. I studied mechanical engineering as an undergrad, and I absolutely love engineering. So when I graduated, I went in practice engineering for a little while. Actually moved down to Las Vegas. Worked on at the time was the largest ever and first commercial concentrated solar thermal power plant, which was a fun experience. So we got that up off the ground. It was sort of effectively a test to see if the technology could be commercialized. And then moved back up to Reno, continued with mechanical engineering. Really, my goal was to move up the engineering ranks, if you will. And so I went back to school to get my master's in business, and really, again, with the full intent of staying in engineering. And as I was getting that MBA or working through the MBA program, I was taking all my electives. I was just being purely selfish and taking all my electives in personal finance classes because it's something that I just enjoyed. And so I'd get through a full day of work. You'd be going to school after hours, from 5:30 to 10, walk into my car at 10 p.m. at night after a full day and just be excited and energized about what I had just learned. And so I'd really say that MBA program was the impetus to encourage me to maybe make a move from engineering to finance. So once I graduated the MBA program, I made that leap. So I left the engineering world, joined the personal finance world as a financial advisor. So I started with Edward Jones as a financial advisor, and I worked there for about 5 years. Really, kind of learned the industry, the business, how to be a financial advisor, and then I came to a point where I wanted to I wanted to kind of start my own thing and align my business with my values. And so I left Edward Jones and started my now company, Alchemy Wealth Management, and have been running that ever since, again, as a wealth management firm.
That's really like I want to dive into some of these components as you went on, like just even just parts of this
Sure.
journey as you went through. Let me ask you here, would you say that you have like a larger mission? And if so, what is that mission that you're about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would define it per se as a mission. I mean, I think I have like ethical standards that I want to make sure that I like withhold throughout like my life, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess to me a mission is sort of like you have to take time and energy to like create, like put into words what you're trying to achieve. And I
Yeah.
can't say that I've taken like time out of my life to create like a life mission.
Yeah.
But also I think the underlying values of a mission, right, exist in everybody. And that's like, what are you trying to achieve? And certainly there are like values that have been instilled in me that I want to like carry through my life. So, I guess depends how you define a mission. I don't
Well,
have like,
yeah. Let's talk a bit about the values if you're good with that, because like again I want to get a chance to get to see you, but I can also if from what I'm hearing, like these standards, the values that you have are like would carry through to how you live your life, how your business gets done, how you work with your clients and so forth. So I feel it'll be pretty interesting to get a sense of those values that carry you through.
sure. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, like doing what's right is important, right? And most of us inherently know, I think, what is right and what is not always right. So I think that's just incredibly important. Doing what you say when you say you're going to do it. It's such a simple thing, but we all interact with people every day in this world, in myself included. I'm not perfect in this, right? But where they say they're going to do one thing and they do something else. And so I think, if you're aligning sort of what you believe your right and wrong is, and you're doing what you say you're going to do, I think you're going to go pretty far, right? So I'd say those are two of the bigger kind of principles I like to live by.
I I appreciate this here because Ryan, you're talking to outliers right now, and we're trailblazers, we're trendsetters, we're doing things and creating our own path. And with that comes like oftentimes a fear, a doubt. Let's say not a fear, but like a doubt of like
Sure.
is this going to work? Does this make sense here? And I really like what you said here, where you're like, if you're doing what you think is right and you're doing what you said you're going to do, like that's a recipe for success. It doesn't have to be any more complicated
Yeah.
than that.
Yep.
You know.
I think and maybe this is in alignment with what you're looking for, but while not really coming up with a life like mission,
Yeah.
I have put some time and energy into like creating. Are you familiar with the term like immutable laws?
I am not, and I would love to be familiar. Tell me more about it.
Sure. So I'm trying to remember who I picked this. This isn't my thing, right? This is just, you gather little pieces here and there from other people we learn from, right? And we stand on their shoulders. And so I can't remember exactly who I picked this off of. So I don't know who to credit for this. So I apologize for that. But, in theory, like an immutable law is like a rule that you like, or a law, I guess, right? That you live your life by. And so one of the reasons why I like this is so like I came up with these immutable laws for my business, but it's almost like not even for your business, it's for your life. So these would be rules that or laws as we're making hiring decisions at Alchemy Wealth. We can hire them through these lenses as we're working, deciding which clients to work with. We can decide which clients we work with through these lenses. As we're making business decisions, we can look at those business decisions through these lenses, but it can also apply to your personal life. As you're making personal decisions, you can apply it through these lenses. And I don't want to give it like some, it's not like I run every decision I have. Like, I go take it to a check box and I say, okay, did it check this? Did it check this? Did it check this? Right.
Mhm.
But I think it is, it is, I have put some time and effort into these immutable laws, and it is they are some things that resonate with me. And so I'd be happy to dive into that as well if you'd like.
Absolutely. Like you're making me think through. I spent a lot of my career in culture. In fact, like even when I'm doing coaching and talking to outliers and such, all I'm ever really doing is shaping culture from an individual perspective, from an organization perspective, or from a societal perspective. And so when I hear you talk about immutable laws, and for me, I hear that as something like values in action. Like I hear, like it's like, how do you take this thing like integrity and you turn it into something real. And so I'm
Yep.
very, very curious about what yours would be, and I'll share some of mine afterwards as well.
Yeah, perfect. And real quick, maybe before I dive into them, so I just did a quick Google search, and yeah, so I do know who I stole this from now. So it was Mike Michalowicz. He has a bunch of different books on like entrepreneurship and businesses. But so he's the one that talks about immutable laws. And here I'll go real quick. So he defines immutable laws as the rules of your life. It combines a person's or business's core values with their ethical standards, best practices, and personal beliefs, revealing their sense of what's right and wrong, or what makes them happy and what doesn't. So that's Mike Michalowicz's different definition of immutable laws. So yeah, happy to jump into mine. So I have 5 of them. So the first one is radical accountability. So each of these I've kind of, I have like kind of what it is and then like a little like sentence
Yeah.
description. So radical accountability. So what radical accountability is to me, we have an ownership mentality. We do what we say when we say we're going to do it. We take ownership and responsibility for our thoughts, moods, behaviors, and results. We are human, so we don't shy away from making mistakes, but we own our mistakes and fail forward. So that's radical accountability. Humbly pursue excellence. So we continually pursue better options, processes, and solutions. We're committed to continual improvement and believe small incremental changes aggregate into significant long-term gains. So again, I've written these from my business's lens. That's why we're using the word, the we and stuff. But so radical accountability, humbly pursue excellence. The third one is attitude of gratitude. So we make a conscious habit of expressing thankfulness and appreciation throughout every part of our lives. This includes understanding other situations and remaining curious, not judgmental. Fourth one is take on the challenge. We don't shy away from hard things. On the contrary, when we see a challenge that will require hard work and push us out of our comfort zone, we dig deep, persevere, and seek success. And the last one is active transparency. We practice active transparency, telling the truth because it deserves to be known, even when the question is not asked. All decisions and communications are made as if the people affected by them are sitting in the room with us. We do what is right. It's that simple. So again, that's radical accountability, humbly pursue excellence, attitude of gratitude, take on the challenge, and active transparency.
I absolutely love this year, and I love how you said like it's just that simple. Like, what's really cool about that is that I feel like it makes that one come alive even more, right? Because it's like
Sure. Yeah.
it's like look, this is it. So what I'm gonna do, Ryan, real quick, is that like I haven't actually pulled this out in a little while because I've been the way I've been operating, but I'm going to share with you our like my 5 core values that we bring
Cool.
out here.
Love it.
I have things that are written. I'll just share it with you.
Yeah.
And we'll go
Perfect.
from there, right?
Yeah.
So with where I have here, and it's been interesting because I'm going to share this, and then I'm going to tell you. Let me share it first, and I'll tell you what's going on here.
Perfect.
So every single one of us has like every single one of my things has like a the value itself is starts with the C. So it's like we have a counterintuitive value, and it's to model our desired future now. I say model our future in the present, and it's like we practice being the leaders we are meant to be in the current moment. Right? There's more things around it, but it's around that.
Yep.
There's a creativity value, and it really comes down to be more you, and we come together to bring forth more of who we are in order to make a more profound impact in the world. We have a community element around building meaningful relationships. We value relationship over connection, depth over scale, questions over answers, and ongoing. We have a collaborate value, which is from creating new possibilities together, and we also have a care value, which is about giving and growing abundantly, so we can consistently like show our care, but also be able to grow from there. Um,
Awesome.
what's cool for me is that I wrote this. I'm looking at my notebook here. It says last edited January 25th, 2023. And if I look at this is a copy of something that was done back in 2022. Like I wrote this a while ago,
Yeah.
and I had been looking at this and I was wondering, like, for my organization now, does this still apply? You know?
Sure.
And what was really cool was like, and just as I was going through it, I'm like, these haven't changed. You know, like even though I haven't come back to it in a long time, like I've still been living out these values as it goes along. So I appreciate that opportunity to go back in here. I'm going to speak to outliers really quickly. Outliers, if you haven't yet, take some time to go and create your values in action, your immutable laws, right? Go like it's a quick Google search to find out more about like what it is and what it takes, but take some time to bring it in and figure out what it is for you on a personal level and or on a business level. And I can hear like how the two of them are very much aligned. This might be in different contexts. You're focusing on different, it manifests itself in different ways. But let's take some time to go and do this and give yourself an opportunity to start building it. If you don't know what these things are right off the bat, don't worry, get started. Get started on it. And if you have done it recently, if you have done it, go back and review it. Go back and not even review it. Review it feels too much of a gap. Go back and make it real for you and see how it all lines up. So
Sure.
Ryan, I appreciate it. I did not expect to go down this path here. But I'm all in for the unexpected, right?
Perfect.
Talking about unexpected, you went to get your MBA and you're like, this is now for me to, but the expectations I'm going to come out and I'm going to be able to take my engineering career even further. And instead, you ended up taking your career in a completely different environment. I want to spend a lot of time in like Alchemy Wealth and what you have created for yourself and for others from there in a bit. I want to speak to the component of what I'm understanding, like that pivot, right? When that pivot occurred for you, I get there's the internal part of like, hey, like I'm finding all this energy around it. I'm curious about how you navigated like basically the external world coming in where it's like Ryan, like Ryan's been moving down this path. He's been doing great here. Now all of a sudden he's going to be a personal advisor. It's a completely different career track. Be curious to see how that worked out for you in your like day-to-day life.
Yeah, I mean, I think primarily I'm pretty darn fortunate where I'm surrounded by supportive people. So I think it was probably easier than maybe it could have been for sure. That said, certainly I do think there were some people who maybe didn't understand the difference between just society's perception of an engineer and society's perception of a financial advisor are very, very different, right? And oftentimes engineering is thought of as, like, I don't know if prestigious is the right term, but I mean, people, if you tell somebody you're an engineer, they're, pretty much all of them are going to say, oh, wow, you must be really smart. And so I think there was some maybe questions around why would this guy be leaving engineering and yeah, it really was just all around sort of what I thought I would enjoy more. I think from like a lifestyle standpoint and like an income standpoint, you can have a great career as an engineer. You can have a great career as a financial advisor. You can have a great career as a business owner. And so I think really you can build whatever you want in any three of those career paths. And so really the question for me was, yeah, just which one do I think I'd be the most happy in, or which one do I enjoy the most? And, the analogy I always give is, I'll be out at, a party and somebody will say, oh, you're a financial advisor, huh? And I'll say, yeah. And they're like, oh, well, I got this old 401k that I don't know what to do with. What should I be doing? Or, am I saying, what, like, they'll just start asking me questions and then they'll say like, oh, no, I don't want to be bothering you at a party on your personal time or whatever, and it's like when you learn somebody's a doctor and you're like, oh, you're a doctor? Really? Yeah. My elbow's been hurting. Do you know anything about that? Right. It's kind of that same concept. And so, these people would be approaching me, at personal events and, maybe bring up these once they learn I'm a financial advisor, bring up these financial topics. And they'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to, be bothering you. This is, your personal time. I'm sure you don't want to be talking about work, at this party. And it's like, no, that's exactly what I want to be talking about. Like, I enjoy these financial topics. And so, I think that's how it's a good fit. If, I would love, the thing is that most of these, like if you're at a cocktail party, most people there don't want to talk about finance. But if I run into somebody who does, I'd love to talk about finance, right? So yeah, I think that's kind of just an indication that it's a good fit. And so, yeah, I think the decision to make the move, I wouldn't say was easy, but did align with what I wanted to do. And again, I was just blessed to be around people who were largely supportive. So honestly, the transition was relatively easy.
I love that. I'm glad to hear that for you. Like honestly, and there's something that's formulated in my mind around like the party test. Like it's
Sure.
like if you would want to share what you do with someone at a party, then then you're onto something good. And I think as I hear that, I'm even playing this out for myself. I'm like, oh, in what places have I been like alive with sharing my mission, sharing like what it is
Yeah.
that I'm doing with people at a party versus like versus like when I'm like, you know what, I'll just tell you this thing I do, and then like, why don't you go focus on this other person? Because it's happened. I've had times where both of those things have come through. I'm just like, you know, this person is more interesting, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm liking this here. I think it's something I'll develop around like the party test. Like if you're
Yeah.
not if someone asks you about your job and you don't feel like you want to talk about it at that party, then like take some time to just continue to
Right.
see what could be shifted. That's cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like that. I think that's interesting. Yeah, the party test. Yeah. If you're a doctor and somebody asks you about elbow pain at a party and you're just like, dude, that's the last thing I want to talk about right now. I've been talking about that for the last 40 hours. Well, maybe that's not a great profession for you.
Yeah,
Maybe, maybe you can make a good living doing it, but maybe it's not in alignment with your passions.
I love this because like I'm even thinking here about like coaching and all that. I'm like there's times where if we're having the right conversation, like it all lines up, you
Yeah.
know. Um, oh, that's cool. I'll play with that. I'll play with that.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing here.
Yeah, I like it.
Um, so let's get into alchemy wealth. Like I want to like explore like I like to really look at like what do you do that's different from others, right? And I think the immutable laws that you have, not like the way, like I think that shapes a lot of it. But you're also like you're at another organization for 5 years. You got a chance to like build in there, and then you said I want to do it on my own. It wasn't like I'm going to go to some other place. You know, you're like I want to do it on my own. So tell me like what are like three of the things that you feel that you do differently through your organization, or maybe your organization does differently when they're working with clients and such, that like that, you know, if you had 50 other financial advisors or financial advisory or organizations, like really makes y'all stand out, or like it's just a
Sure.
differentiation for you.
Yeah, in I mean, and I think this might help set the stage for the conversation as well. One of the ways I talk to clients about this is, this is not a great analogy, I'll tell you on the front end, but it's an analogy that a lot of people can resonate with, and
Okay.
it probably could use some work, but so be it. So, with this analogy, I think I talk about hamburgers, right, or getting a cheeseburger, and so you could go to McDonald's and get a 99-cent cheeseburger, right? You could go to kind of your local burger shop and get a $6 cheeseburger. And you could go to a steakhouse and probably find yourself like a $50 cheeseburger, right? And all three are cheeseburgers. All three are very different price points. All three are very different service levels, right? They're just all very different. And I don't think it would be fair to tell anybody that any one of those three burgers is better or worse than another one. They're just all uniquely different. And so if you were to go tell the college student or the mother of eight struggling to put food on the table that, oh, why would you eat at McDonald's? Like the steakhouse burger is so much better. The McDonald's burgers are trash. You should never eat those. It's like, well, that's not the best fit for that though, for the college student, right? And the flip side of that is if somebody has the money and can justify it and values somebody refilling their water for them, and they value having the extra toppings on their burger or whatever, right? Then the steakhouse may be the best fit for that, for another individual to get their burger. And so it's three different burgers. Three different types of people could each choose a different burger, and that burger could each be right for them, right? And so I think this similar kind of concept is true of financial advisors. It's not like Alchemy Wealth Management is the best financial advice, just like the best financial advisory firm. It's a financial advisory firm that provides the services, and we do align closely with some people's goals and resonate closely with some people, right? There'd be other people out there who we are just quite honestly not the best fit for, right? And so, as you're kind of thinking about how financial advisors or businesses are different, one of the things that does make Alchemy Wealth Management, getting into actually now your question, one of the things that does make us different is, so we are independent. So what that means is like Alchemy Wealth Management is registered directly with, my state, the state of Nevada. We are not doing business under any other organization. And so what that means is it gives us a lot of freedom, right? When you're working for a larger business, that business is oftentimes pushing, it's not in any bad way, but that business they're running a very large business, and they need to implement business practices that allow a large business to run. So some of those could be, compliance related. Some of those could be around business growth related. And not all of those decisions that the big business is pushing when it flows down to the individual clients, not all of those decisions are best for the individual clients, right? So as you're running an independent business, so Alchemy Wealth Management is truly independent. We don't have that sort of mothership, if you will, right? And so we can just sit down with each of our individual clients and determine what is best for this client. And we're allowed, we're completely able to do that. So being independent's unique. We're what's called fee only. I don't know that now's the time and the place to dive too deep into fee structures, but it basically just, in my opinion, helps eliminate some conflicts of interest
Yeah.
from the financial advisor's standpoint. And then we're fiduciaries, which means we're legally required to put our clients' best interests ahead of the others. So I'd say from a structural standpoint of the business, those would be some things that like differentiate an Alchemy Wealth Management. And we're not the only firm that's fee only, independent, and a fiduciary. There's lots of other ones out there, right? But it certainly puts us in a smaller pond, if you will.
Yeah, I really like this, Ryan, because like when you talked about like the best fit and the three cheeseburgers, what like I was thinking about my outliers right now, and oftentimes I'll hear things where people won't put out their podcast or they won't write the
Mm,
book or they won't like share what their gift is because they're like, well, it isn't the best overall. And like
yeah,
you came in here and you just owned, you're like, is it the best empirically? That's not the real question here. The real like it's like
sure.
for a certain group of people, this like we are an amazing option for them given what we offer and what we focus on.
Yep.
So one, just like having that concept overall is really great. Let me ask you, like, and this is going to tie to some other things, but like as you think about this as a business owner and such, how did you get to the place where you were like willing to it almost feels like you're willing to say more no to others. We're like, honestly, we're not the best fit, versus like being in a place where you're like, well, if business is coming, I need to I have to go be this for everyone. I feel like a lot of us as outliers, I know myself included, like,
Mhm.
it just feels like if we have a wide net, then we should be able to get a whole lot in. But I
Right.
feel like you purposely have a different approach to it. So why don't you speak to that real quick?
No, I mean, I'd say I'm probably in a similar boat as you or any of the listeners. I mean, I think that I would love to say that I have mastered that, I don't know that I am a master of it. I do think, to your point, I think I love this saying, niches get the riches. And so yeah, the more specific you can be, yeah, your pool of potential, maybe clients or people you're servicing or listeners or whatever you're doing gets smaller, but you can provide more value to that small number of listeners or the small number of clients, right? And so it's still something, quite honestly, that I'm working toward and trying to get better at and get even more sort of focused. Certainly I have gotten, better as my career goes on. And honestly, a lot of that it get yeah, I do honestly believe it gets easier. Like if when you're first starting out and you have, in my place, if we apply this to financial advisory practices, if you have zero clients and so you're creating zero revenue, but you have expenses, and somebody comes up to you that's not a perfect fit for your business, for you to turn them away and say, no, you're not the best fit for our business, that's really hard to do. Now you fast forward, if you've grown a large enough business where you can cover all your bills, you can live the lifestyle you want, it's a lot easier than when somebody comes up to you to say, sorry, you're not the best fit for our business, and turn them away, right? And direct them to a resource that would better be able to serve their needs. And so I think it is easy to understand the concept. It's a lot harder to put into practice. And I think, quite honestly, the longer you're in the business and the bigger you build your business, the easier and easier this becomes. I'm always in awe of the people who can implement these like really strict niches and stuff from day one. Like it's very impressive and not necessarily exactly how I was able to, or how I grow my business, but definitely respect how they're able to grow their businesses. It's impressive to me.
That's awesome. Like, so, um, there's a there's something that's been going through my mind, and like the question I'm thinking through right now is I'm going to go back to your business journey, and really get to a place where like you actually face some like real difficulties and hardships, right? Would you mind sharing with us like a time that you had to overcome a failure and the steps that you took to overcome it? I actually get really curious about that for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can think of any great example off the top of my head, but I mean, one sort of generic example is, anytime we're all human, right? I mean, and if we go back to one of my immutable laws, right? What is it? But in the radical accountability, we're human, so we don't shy away from making mistakes, but we own our mistakes and fail forward. And so the reality is, anytime a human is doing data input or doing something, right? If you do it enough, something's going to get missed eventually, right? The best pitcher in the world doesn't throw a strike every time, right? The best quarterback in the world doesn't throw a touchdown every pass, right? And so they throw their interceptions, they throw their balls, like, and so the same is true. No matter how good of a financial advisor I am, I'm never going to be able to be a mistake-free financial advisor. I try to implement technology solutions and processes and procedures to avoid as many mistakes as possible, of course, but I also have to acknowledge some mistakes are going to happen. And so, you know, I hesitate to even call that a failure. That's just life. But, you know, in light of your question, I would say, you know, in some sense, you're at times failing your clients. And I think the easiest way to overcome that is just to say, hey, basically, I'm sorry. I told you I was going to do XYZ. I didn't do XYZ for whatever reason. I'm going to do XYZ now. And then you better follow through, right? That second time. But so I think just owning your mistake, you know, people understand that you're going to make mistakes. And if you own your mistake and admit to making the mistake and then figure out a way to rectify the mistake, I think you're on a good path forward.
Yeah, there's the group I'm a part of that have talk about integrity. They said like, hey, when we're here, we act in integrity, and the way that they define integrity is like they're like it starts off with exactly how you did. Like we're human, right? So we are not talking perfection, you know, but we do stand like we do own who we are and how we want to be showing up in the world,
Sure.
and the relationship that we have, and it's like, and the integrity clause is like we act in integrity, and when we don't, then it's like not if like when
Yeah.
and because it's like it's gonna happen. And when we don't, we clean up as quickly as possible and we get
Yeah.
back in. And that like and that's when I hear that from you, like when I hear you speak right now, like that took me right back to it where it's like, let's not pretend that everything that like it's that everything can be perfect, but it's how you deal with when things go off like that to me is important.
Yeah. I like that definition of integrity.
Yeah, yeah. I had a conversation the other day. I was just about to go buy a product, and I saw a couple different options online. And so,
Mhm.
it was one of those where when I read the reviews, everyone was like customer service, like, and it was on every single like site. So I was like, all right, like let me just. I have a question. Let me call up their customer service and go through. The first two people I called, no one picked up. You know, the third person I called in, I actually talked to a human within like 10 seconds. I talked to that human. I was very upfront. I was like, look, here goes the deal. I get that like there's like no product is perfect, all this other things. I just need to know that when things go wrong, I'm not gonna be left in the lurch because this is not something I want to be investing any more time in than I
Mhm.
need to. And I don't want to be like questioning it. So it's really cool how we're having this conversation here. I'm like, literally, I said to her, I was like, I'll go with you if I can trust you. That's
Yeah.
it. I'll
Right.
go with you if I can trust you. And I feel that level of trust come through where it's like you just nothing to hide. It's just let's
Sure.
just get things cleaned up and go. Radical
Yep.
honesty. I love that. So let's talk here. You wrote a book, you have a podcast. Tell us firstly, just tell us the names of both of them. Let's start with the book. What's the book out there that you have?
Yeah. So the book is Your Fiscal Physical. Your Fiscal Physical, 7 Keys to Becoming Financially Fit.
Nice, nice. And your podcast is called
The Fiscal Physical podcast.
See what he did there. I love it. So we have your physical, which is the book, and the fiscal physical podcast, which is the podcast, obviously.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit here around like being a thought leader and creating in this space because a lot of us out here are like, all right, we have our own podcast. We're looking to build our platform, right?
Mhm.
So let me first ask them to say like, why did you do this, like like how did this fit within like the pictures of what you're building all together?
Yeah, I mean, I think I get multiple things out of it, right? From a selfish standpoint, I mean, I think as with anything, decisions always have to be win-win, right? And so if you're doing something that hurts you and helps somebody else, that's not a sustainable solution. If you're doing something that helps you and hurts somebody else, that's not a sustainable solution, right? So you always want to be doing something that helps you and helps somebody else, right? And so, I mean, I think this is a perfect example of that. I think in theory, at least, right? Everybody wins. And so by putting by publishing Your Fiscal Physical, the book, right? It helps build credibility for myself. It helps build credibility for my business. It helps build, conversations like this, as somebody's listening to this and they're saying, oh, he's an author. Okay. Now, immediately he's a little bit more of an expert. Right. And so there's something I'm getting out of it, right? It helps with my pride, right? I'm a prideful person like everybody else. Makes me feel good at the end of the day to lay my head on my pillow and know that I published a book, right? At the end of the day. So I think there's lots of things I get out of it. And then the flip side of that is hopefully the community gets something out of it as well, right? So I hopefully try to connect the people who would best be able to utilize your Fiscal Physical, the book, and they can learn something. And I've gotten good feedback from it so far. So very much appreciative of that. And it really is about sort of empowering people in the sense of finances, right? So just learning some of the basics of finances. Finances is this interesting thing that's taboo to talk about. And so I use the example, usually most parents don't communicate with their kids how much they earn or what their net worth is, right? It's not really socially acceptable to go ask your best friend how much they make. You're maybe not telling your kids how much you make or how much you have. And so you're just on this little island where you're not talking about finances with anybody. And so if you think about how you're educated, you're not being educated through our school systems really on this. You're not being educated through your friends. You're not being educated through your family. So where are people getting this financial education? And the answer is they're not. And I like to use the example, if I was to like stand on a stage, right, in front of 1,000 people, and I was to say, hey, who here knows what a stock is? Put your hand in the air. You'd see a couple hands go up, then a couple more hands, more hands. You're looking around, maybe 500 hands out of 1,000, and then the 500 hands that aren't up yet, they're looking around. They see, oh, everybody else knows what it is. They put their hand up. Eventually, you have all 1,000 hands up. Everybody knows what a stock is, right? Then if you go pull these people aside one by one afterwards, and you say, hey, so what is a stock? You're going to find that maybe 2 out of the 1,000 people actually know really what a stock is. Sure, we maybe have heard of a stock, but what is a stock, right? And so I think that's kind of interesting is everybody thinks everybody else knows what a stock is, but almost nobody actually knows what a stock is, but they don't want to be that person who seems ignorant. Like if you think everybody else knows what a stock is, most people think they're the only person who doesn't know what the stock is. And so they're scared to ask the questions, right? They don't want to feel out of place or again, ignorant. So I think that, like the book is, again, the value it provides to community. It gives people an opportunity to say like, hey, what is a stock? And hopefully it's a fairly easy read that goes over some of those just really truly basics that empowers you to make good financial decisions that affects your life.
I appreciate this concept of like what is a stock. Like I'm not gonna answer it because I think I know.
Sure.
Then I'm like, but what if I don't? Like I should
Yeah,
hit
yeah,
this
yeah,
book and
yeah,
just check it in, right? But the things that run for me are one, the concept of kind of like what everyone thinks that everyone knows and we
yeah,
actually don't, right? It's like
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know, there's probably a name for
probably.
this,
Yeah,
but it's like I want to encourage you outliers to like think about like the things in your world right now that you might be holding yourself back on because you're like, well, I mean, everyone knows this, or like I should know it, but like I don't, and everyone else. And my thing is, I think we're all the two things I've started to realize as I keep going through life is like, we're all making things up. I
yeah,
think that's actually like the fundamental premise of everything. Everything's made up, and we're all making things up. So they're making up
sure.
that they know what a stock is,
Mm.
and there's less people in there that really know that than you think. And so if you're caught in a place where you're comparing yourself or like thinking to yourself that maybe like you're facing an imposter syndrome or whatever it is out there, just give yourself that space to like be like, look, not if when push comes to shove, we actually don't know. We know we think we know more than we do. And it's not to
Mhm.
say we can't find out more. But like you may not be in any better or worse position than any other person. That's one.
Right.
And the second thing that's come to mind as you say this here is that it takes me to like what like when you are a master or an expert in your field, whatever your field is, right? For me, it's like how like differentiation, like how people be different. Um, the basics, the things that make they feel basic to you might be completely like next level for others. I think that's
Sure.
an like an interesting
Yeah.
place to take it where it's like you know what a stock is. you
Right.
know, like it's clearly this. Like I could write a whole book or at least include it in a book, you know.
Yep.
But when in that one-on-one conversation, it's like that's actually like even just their entry point in. I'd be curious if you have anything you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and I think there's a term for that, and I can't think of what it is, but it's when you're so ingrained in a topic that you forget that like what you forget what things are like commonly known and what things only experts know. There's a common phrase for that, and I can't remember what it is, but I do think that sort of plays into a lot of imposter syndrome. And so, if some of the outliers who are listening, if they're thinking, um, you know so like again, let's take my industry for example, and we say, okay, I know what a stock is. I've known what a stock is now for many years, and it's like a core piece of what I do every single day. And so you start sort of removing yourself from that, and you get to the point where it's like, yeah, everybody knows what a stock is. So what value, knowing what a stock is, what value is there, right? And the reality is sometimes you got to take a step back and realize, no, even something that's like fundamentally basic to you doesn't necessarily mean it's fundamentally basic knowledge to everybody else, right? So, whether that's, if you're a bike mechanic, you might think, God, after you've worked on 1,000 bikes, you're like, God, anybody could do this. What I do is not that valuable. Like, maybe I'm ripping people off, charging them this much to work on their bike, whatever. The reality is, like, dude, you probably know more about bike gearing and how to take off a chain and wax a chain and do all this, that like you are an expert in that. And you just have to sometimes realize like what what the general public knows. And just because it's basic to you doesn't mean it's not valuable to somebody else.
Right. I just had a moment here. Why did you see me like hold my face in because something just clicked and I'm like, oh man, I set my own self up for this.
Yeah.
And what happened here is that last year I authored a book. I didn't write it. I dictated it and someone on my team was able to turn it into something, right?
Awesome.
And it's like it exists, it's complete, it has all this stuff. And for the last year, I haven't brought it out. I talk about how I have not launched this book like it's
Yeah.
so much. And I think and my criteria is I'm like, but is it really helpful? You know, has it like
Yeah.
really like is it really like great at helping
Right.
people, right? And as we're talking and we're saying these things, I'm like, oh, I'm one of the worst people to answer this question because I'm
Yeah.
sharing things and I'm like, this is probably not like this is probably fluff, but like it's because I live it, you
Right.
know? And it's like, I'm
Yep.
like, well, obviously. And I'm
Yep.
like, and now I'm like, I can't know. And the people that I got to like beta test read it, like
Yep.
they also live something similar to it. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm
Yep.
like, I don't have the right like
Yeah.
size to actually make a real decision as to is this good or not. Like, I think I just need
Right.
to get it out to people, see what comes back, and then continue to make the improvements based on that. But uh I'm like, oh no, I'm running
Yeah.
out of places to hide.
That's funny. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, what's the worst case scenario? What if you do publish it? I mean, worst case scenario, you publish it, maybe, I mean, then
Yeah,
you help one person, two people.
yeah,
You still helped one person or two people, right? Like, I
I,
mean,
I I think that the other side of it is like even if no one reads it, to be like when you said like you talked about like just the pride in it, like it's like there's something that I think would change in the way that I thought of
yep,
myself, and that is like that's incredibly valuable, you
yep,
know, to be like, look, I'm a published author, you know, whether or not people read it or not, like that's the truth, right?
mhm,
And I have that book, and I can always make another one, you
yep,
know, or I can always improve this one. There's
yeah,
so Ryan, thank you. I didn't expect to like as soon as I saw it come in, I was like, oh man, I think there's nowhere else for me to go other than to like just show up with this. So I
sure,
appreciate it here. We're gonna wrap up our conversation here. What I want to do is make sure that you know for anyone who wants to stay in your world, whether it's getting their hand on the book or like coming to work with you or just like following the podcast, like what are the best ways for them to do it?
yeah. Best ways to reach out to me, probably through my business's website. So that's alchemywealth.com. Alchemywealth.com is the name of my business. That's probably the easiest way to contact anything business related. If the book sounded of interest, you can just go to Amazon and search the Your Fiscal Physical, or search Your Fiscal Physical Ryan Nelson, or if you forget the title of it, Ryan Nelson Fiscal Physicalist, whatever. And you'll be able to find that on Amazon or wherever else you buy books. And then same for the podcast. That's going to be on any of the podcast players, so Apple, Spotify, wherever you might listen to podcasts, and that's the Fiscal Physical podcast.
Awesome. Awesome. So I like to end up each conversation with what I call the time capsule question, right? And so what this here is that it's a message that you would leave in this current moment that you wouldn't hear again for another 10 to 15 years, right? Well, like I think we have a lot of wisdom right now that you might want to that you may just forget, or not, it may not
Yeah.
be like that present for you later on. What's a message you would leave for yourself right now that you'll listen to again later on?
Yeah, I like that in regards to wisdom, but I might take it in a slightly
Please.
different direction. And I think I might almost take a timestamp of where I'm at, personally and professionally. And because I think it's so hard, what's the quote? It's something like we overestimate what we can achieve in a single year, and we underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. And if you think back on your life 10 years ago, it's so different, right? And so 10 years from now, I can't even fathom really where I'll be. And I think there's some value to sometimes be regrounded. And so almost just taking a snapshot of where I'm at currently, personally, professionally, and being able to reflect back on that in 10 years, I think would provide a lot of value.
Well, I am glad that you brought this in here, Ryan. Thank you so much for being you, for bringing what you bring to the table. I've enjoyed our conversation. I'm looking forward to your ongoing success. All right, journey on.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.